Before a big final, just what were your processes? Were you someone who had to put the left sock on first before the right sock? Or that was dispensed? Was it a heart rate monitor? What got you into the zone for performance?
In terms of dealing with the pressure and the stress, oddly enough, first, I think you have to understand pressure and stress and how to deal with it. And you have to understand what it is. It's not going to go away. You can't make it go away. It's going to be there. And you have to learn how to deal with it and how you deal with it best. And I learned that early on. Oddly enough, I think I had a bit of an inherent advantage that I like it. I mean, it's the one thing that I miss. People ask a lot, do you miss it? And the only thing I miss is, oddly enough, the moment that most athletes hate, and that is that, 20 minutes before the race, we're called into the call room. It's small. All 8 finalists are there. It's only us. There's no one else. Doors closed. We're locked in there. There's no windows and nothing, You're just kind of sitting there with the guys that you're about to, go out here and run this race against. And all 8 guys want to win. Only one's going to win. And it's pressure packed. And I love that. Oddly enough, don't know why I did. And so I liked being in that moment. I was nervous in that moment. I was always nervous, but I liked being nervous. And I knew how to deal with the nerves. I knew how to control the nerves so that the nerves didn't control me. That's the way I dealt with it. And everybody does it differently. You have to know yourself as a person to understand how you deal with that moment best. You take a Usain Bolt. Bolt knows, and people think that, he's out there sort of doing all of the crazy stuff, and kind of not taking this seriously, and then he still goes out and wins. It's not true that he's not taking it seriously and that he doesn't care. He knows, and I've had this conversation with him, a few times. He knows that if he takes it too seriously while he's out there, and he does the same thing that I did that helped me to succeed, where he's just at this super high level of focus, the nerves are going to drive him crazy, and they're going to tear him up, and he's not going to perform. So he knows what he has to do, and that works for him. But it allows him to get himself in the mental state and emotional state that he needs to go out there and perform at his best. It's different for everybody.
So we've talked a little bit about the training and the pressure. I just want to finish with speed, pure speed. Everyone loves speed. I'm going to choose a 200 to start with. Just break a 200 down for me. A Michael Johnson trend. You start, you middle, you finish.
There's strategy to every sprint, even the 100 meters. Of course, it looks like, the gun goes off and everybody just runs as fast as they can. First person to the finish line wins. And that's true. But there's a lot going on in between there. And even for the 100 meters, you are executing a strategy. And as you're doing that, you're making adjustments during the race. So for 200 meters, the gun goes off. You want to get up to race pace as quickly as you possibly can. If you have the ability, you could sprint the entire thing without any break, without any relaxation, just all out ballistic speed the entire way. Most people can't do that. I could come pretty close to it because of my 400 meter endurance. So I would get up to race pace as quickly as possible. At 50 meters, I'm absolutely at top speed, but you're actually navigating the bend, which is a little bit tricky. From a balance standpoint. At 50 meters, I may take a literally 3 meters to 4 meters, about 3 steps to 4 steps, maybe 5 steps, relaxation, just a bit, only for that amount of time. And then it's back at it. Now you've got to anticipate coming off the curve. And this is when you start to see and start to really take into view where the other competitors are. And you're making decisions there. Do I push a little bit more right now before I come out of the curve? Or do I allow myself to just continue this pace? Don't, disrupt the flow at all. And then come out of the bend and try to take a bit of a slingshot out of the bend. And then take that momentum down the track. At that point, it is literally just holding form and trying to minimize any sort of disruption to the technique, because you're running as fast as you can at that point. And now the objective is to get to that finish line as smoothly but as quickly as possible. The smoother you are, the faster you're going to run. The more relaxed you are, the faster you're going to run. So you're resisting the temptation at that point to try harder. Any attempt to try harder is going to tighten you up, and it's going to make you run slower. So what you're trying to do at that point is just, the tendency as well with a sprint like that, and as you start to get to the end, is, if you don't have the upper body strength, your form will start to fall apart, and that's not the most efficient running, and you're running slower. So you want to really be mentally focused on just optimizing every step, balance, and symmetry for the entire way.
I spoke to my wife before I was coming on. I said, mouth is a bit dry. I'm speaking to Michael Johnson today. She goes, I love that guy. And I went, so tell me what you think about when you think about Michael Johnson. And I went, and so I'm going to hide behind her quote. Because she went, yeah, he ran kind of funny. He sort of ran like a duck. You were very upright, so I'm hiding behind my wife, but you had a very unique style. If someone turned up now at the Michael Johnson Performance Center with your style, would you try and break it down? Or, I don't know if I'm making sense with the question. It didn't seem like your chest on pumping was suited to sprinting.
But yeah. The only thing I think, Will, if you really broke that down, and it's a legitimate point that has been made, for years throughout my career and in the years since my retirement. There was a really interesting time period at the beginning of my professional career when all of the commentators, said, oh, he's got amazing talent. If he changes his style, he could be the world record holder. Well, obviously, I never changed my style, and obviously, I became the world record holder. But the only reason those people said that, if you asked any of them, it was because in comparison to other sprinters, mine was different. And it was just by a very, very simple process of one looks different than the other, so the one that looks different must be wrong. That was it. There's no science behind that. There's no logic behind that. And I was fortunate to have a coach who didn't take that approach. My coach took the approach. Clyde Hart, who was my coach my entire career, took the approach of, sprinting is hard enough. I don't see anything that he's doing that is inefficient, and he's running faster than the other people. So I'm going to stay with this. And in fact, I'm going to investigate it. And when he did, and then we worked with the U.S. Olympic Committee and all of their sports scientists back in early 90s at the beginning of my professional career, and found that it was actually because of the way that I ran that was actually much more efficient than all of the other sprinters. The forward lean looks beautiful, looks great when Carl Lewis does it, and he was great at it. But you don't get as much force into the ground with that when you're much more upright. Now, you can't change anybody to try to be Michael Johnson. You can't say, hey, I'm going to put you up more right when you naturally run with a bit more lean. Doesn't work. It only worked for me because of the way that my body was made and the natural talent that I had and ability. So we started to enhance that by incorporating things into our training program and our strength program that allowed me to put even more force into the ground, and that force into the ground equals speed.
Now, I've looked around on web engines and I haven't been able to find one. So I did some simple maths and went, the famous one is the 19.32. I'm going to divide it by 2. I'm going to get 9.66. I'm going to work out there's going to be no fatigue or slowdown at the end of the race, but I also understand there's the start. What your top end 100 on record? What could you run 100 meters in?
Doesn't matter. I know what I know what I could run the 200 meters in and the 400 meters in, which was fast enough to be faster than anyone else had ever done it before during my career. And I was not a 100-meter runner. I mean, my personal best was 10:07. Could I have run faster than that if I had trained for the event? Yeah, but I wasn't going to be able to run fast enough to win medals at 100 meters. That just was not my event. In track and field, the sprint events are so specific and the talent lies so specifically in those different areas that, you will find where your talent lies and which one of those events works for you. And typically, it's the 100 meters and maybe the 200 meters a little bit, or maybe you're a 200-meter runner that can run a little bit of the 100. But before I started my career, there was very few people that could run 200 and 400 and bring those two together, and that's what made me so unique. And because it had rarely been done before, and it certainly hadn't been done at the level of Olympic and World Championship medals in those two events. That's what intrigued me so much about it, and I had a unique ability to run them both. And so I went through my career at the start thinking, I want to be a world champion at 200 meters, but there's always a world champion at 200 meters. Nobody's ever been the world champion at 200 meters and the world champion at 400 meters. And so after I won my first 200-meter world championship, then I set my sights on becoming a 400-meter world champion and made history by becoming the first person to do that. And then I thought, I wonder if I could do it both in the same championship together. And in 1995, I was able to do that. And then, so of course, then the next natural thing was do it at the Olympics, and then break the world record in both. And all of those things were first that no one had ever done, and that was what was driving me. That's what was motivating me. I never had motivation to try to become a 100-meter runner or to add the 100 meters to that. That would have been incredible, to be a world champion in the 100, 200, and 400. But I didn't have that talent. I think Usain Bolt could have done that, and I tried to convince him to do it, but he didn't want to do it. 400 meters is tough, and he knew how that training was going to go, and he didn't want to do it. But I think he could have been a world champion, or maybe even Olympic champion at all three events, which would have been incredible.